Meeting to order. All right, we're recording now, so we'll call this meeting to order at 7:33 on March 27th, 7:30. And we will start off with, I move that we approve the meeting minutes. Is there anybody who read the meeting minutes that would like to make any changes? Nope, sounds good. So can we go ahead and approve those?
I'll second the motion.
Thanks, Lisa. Moved and seconded, and let's move on pretty quickly to our police report. But I just want to say one sentence before we do. I ran into the police chief and our local beat officers and Michelle Malam in the Point yesterday. And the police chief is enthusiastic about meeting with us. And I told her at this point, I felt that our beat officers were doing a good job at filling in and her time is pretty valuable. So I just want to let you know that she is pretty happy to meet with us if the community wants that to happen, and we can schedule that in. So let's go ahead with the police report, and you gentlemen take it in whatever order you want to.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So I guess I'll go first. As you know, well, most of you know, I'm Officer Tagorda, Richmond PD. Obviously, I do work Beat 1, Point Richmond. And again, good evening. So we'll go ahead and start with the numbers. And this is a 30-day update, which is dated from February 24th to March of 25. Looks like calls for service is 230 calls for service, which is an increase of 20% from the last update. Incident reports is 30 incident reports. That's up by 87% as compared to 16 incident reports. I know you guys really like the top 5 locations, so we've been kind of including that. So the top 5 locations for the Point Richmond area, and I'm proud to say that 3 West Richmond is not in here. So that's outstanding. But it looks like the 900 block of West Cutting did see a little bit of an increase, and it made our #1 spot, which accounted for 25 of those calls for service. Second place will be the 100 block of Park Place. Third would be the West Richmond, like the 100 block again of West Richmond. That doesn't include 3 West Richmond. 500 block of Wine Street, and then we have the 200 block of Water Street. Most of our calls for service, our top 10 call for service are mainly security checks. We did have that was 27 security checks. Audible alarms, that's 19. A lot of those just occur in the morning when people are opening up businesses. We had 12 calls for a suspicious person. And that's usually the homeless that kind of walk up and down the streets in that area. 11 calls, disturbance calls, 10 suspicious vehicles, a couple abandoned autos, parking violations, and that basically kind of sums up the calls for service in the Point Richmond area. As far as incident reports go, we had 8 thefts in the area, 5 vehicle thefts, 3 batteries, and 2 recovered vehicles. And we actually had a DUI in that area. 1 robbery, 1 burglary, and 1 auto burg. And considering, like, as you know, the Point Richmond area, it doesn't get hit as hard as other areas in the city, so that's actually pretty good numbers. Yeah, so those are your stats for the 30-day stats right there.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Officer Tagorda, or Sergeant Moody's also on the call tonight? Everybody's quiet tonight.
Don't see any hands.
That's a good thing.
Moody, I see you.
I do want to point out that as I mentioned, the chief and Michelle and other top brass from the RPD were walking the business district, going door to door yesterday. The number one complaint, or many of the complaints, revolved around a new influx of unhoused folks. It's kind of the same situation we had when the Woods encampment closed last year. And it seems that new folks are finding their way in via bus, public bus, possibly from Marin and from Oakland and Berkeley. And that's caused a lot of nuisance problems, and some business people have their clients harassed, or folks that are not well, either due to drugs or mental illness, are rather disruptive within their businesses. The business community is communicating directly with Michelle, who's on the homeless task force, and I'm forwarding any communications I get from the business communication community or from the neighborhood. So we've got some action plan from Michelle, as they did last year when things got pretty hairy around here. They are sending CORE out to set up some outreach. So I would expect to see those medical vans, and at that time, they're going to try to engage these new residents and see if they can get them some help. This last the appearance of the residents that we've got, or the folks, I'm going to say the homeless folks, there's quite a few people that are in really bad shape, really, really bad shape. So hopefully the county will be able to work with the city to work on that. Officers, do you have anything else for us, or do you want to finally go home and get a good night's rest and something to eat?
No, thank you for that, Philip. Michelle actually made contact with Contra Costa Health Services yesterday. She sent an email immediately following that walk. It was a pleasure to meet a lot of you yesterday. Got a great opportunity to meet some of the business people out there. They are trying to organize to where they could get all the resources and services out there to take care of this influx and the homelessness issue out there. So we are definitely working with everybody on the Contra Costa County Health Services side in order to get those services out there.
Thank you. And I should have mentioned, actually, CORE was out this morning with their medical vans. I had a busy day, so I forgot, I neglected to mention. So we got a 24-hour turnaround on those
Fantastic.
requests. So yeah, they
Great.
were out on the corner. They tend to end up on the corner of Railroad Avenue and by the freeway, Railroad Avenue and Tewksbury. Kate, you have a question. Please unmute. Unmute, Kate.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Cedric, where can this 30-day list that you just gave to us in detail, where can that be seen on any website?
You can go to our the RPD website, and you can actually go to crime stats. I believe that's still up, correct there, Sergeant Moody? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it should be.
Yes, so if you go to the RPD website, you can actually filter the calls for service, the types of crimes that are occurring within a span. So you can actually filter, like if you want to have, pick an area and then maybe do like a half-a-mile radius or even a few block radius, you can actually narrow it down and filter it. And then you can see all the types of crimes and incidences that are occurring within that area within a given time. So you just got to put those specific parameters in, and it'll show you. A lot of the crime stats that we pull up are done by our crime analysis personnel, which they do an outstanding job. And the information you can also get on that website.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And if you want to send me the report, we can include it in the minutes each month.
Right. Yeah. So technically, we are not supposed to be sending this particular information, or at least not in that format, but I made some special accommodations for you because you're great, and I feel that you deserve them. So yes. So But yeah, I will see what I can do and continue to try to get you those minutes so you have them. But
Okay,
again, a
awesome.
lot of this information is that you can go to the RPD website, you can go to crime stats, right? And you can pull all the information there.
Great.
Good.
Have they, just one last quick question, have they installed any more of the flock cameras yet throughout the city or in our area?
That's in the works right now. Sergeant Moody might have a little more information on that, but I know we just got a bunch in, and I know they are still trying to install all those cameras. As far as where they're going, I think that's top secret, but yes, they will be going to certain areas
Right.
within the city.
Yeah, it's a process. We're still working on getting them all installed, and it's going to take a little while.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Gentlemen, thanks for coming. As always, we're grateful for your hard work.
Thank you.
All righty, we're on time. I'm gonna do three reports. I'll do a quick president's report, and I will be sending an email out. First of all, we somehow managed, in my opinion, to make the spring fling an enormous success, despite the fact that every other half hour it was raining. For those who were there from the community and for the board members and volunteers who helped, I want to say thank you. The kids had a blast. The librarian, who is a local hero, allowed the Easter egg hunt to be held within that tiny little library with 1 million kids screaming and parents and volunteers hiding the eggs in the stacks and just going around the room continuously hiding 600 Easter eggs in that tiny little room. So the kids had a great time, and Arts at Point Richmond folks came out, and we were grateful for them. It was a terrible, day, but everybody made sales, and we'll just hope for better weather for future events. So I want to thank everybody on that success. And if I might, I'm going to go directly into President's report. We are still seeking a vice president position. I sent out in the newsletter, which is at the bottom of this email that you received, the basic duties of vice president. Lisa is going to time out in May, and we do have 2 applicants, which the board will be considering to bring to your attention next month. So that's a good thing, but we would still like people to step forward, and like every nonprofit or charity or a community organization in this area, we're desperate for volunteers. If you walk your dog and you can help us by putting up posters or flyers, that's 1 hour less that a board member has to do. If you are computer literate and can help us with some questions, for those of you who like to spend a lot of time on Nextdoor and social media, maybe just posting our activities there and following up. So every little thing that might take you only 30 minutes every 2 weeks is one less thing your board members have to do. So let's keep an eye out. If you know someone in the community that you think would be a good fit, you've got my phone number, you've got our emails. I'm going to go ahead and I will do who's next? Let's see. Treasurer's report, because Margie's a little under the weather this evening. The Prnc is actually in good financial shape, which is great because we have a lot of projects that we want to take on this year. We've got, I'm going to give you an approximate number. It looks like we've got approximately $22,000 in the bank right now. That's a lot of money for a neighborhood council. So we're going to be able to sponsor some of the key activities, and we'll be letting you know, and we're going to be asking for projects that you would like us to participate in. The city has a grant available to active neighborhood councils for projects, so we will come to you when we find the details, and we'll find out what those projects might be. One project that seems that it would be useful that I would like to address is the possibility that we can start a nonprofit, either through the PRNC or separately, because so many of our community organizations are struggling with nonprofit status right now. So that's one suggestion I'll be bringing to the table, so that there's one distribution system where we can now try to get some grant money in. currently the Richmond Neighborhood Coordinating Council. Their nonprofit status is on hold temporarily due to a paperwork glitch, which is why we are expecting a generous check from Chevron to cover the spring fling expenses and for our tunnel mural project where we're doing the interpretive signage. So currently they're just waiting to find a way to pay us because they need a nonprofit. If any of you have nonprofit and we can run it through yours, we would be grateful for that in the meanwhile. The spring fling cost $1,460 this year in total, and that is comparable to last year. And we also spent $353 on 3 gorgeous new signboards, those A-frame sandwich boards, much sturdier, much better, much bigger. They're not going to blow over. So that's a little bit of the hardware that we bought as well. And now I'll do the membership report because Eric is running late as well. We currently have 175 paid members. This is low, but the payment happens in May. And so it is normal at this time that people haven't paid yet. So we'll see a jump in that as people pay their memberships in May. And we have 1 new member and a couple of people we spoke to at Spring Fling. So that's that update on there. And so now we have an opportunity to welcome guests from Veolia. We've got our key guest is really Monty Dill. That was the main one of the main guests. Monty is in charge of our local Veolia facility. And I'm going to need help with the names of your colleagues. We have, well, Rodrigo, I can pronounce. And is CB okay?
Yes, I go by
Okay.
CB. Yes,
Thank you.
for
And so CB is okay. So I will welcome you all. And just, this is,
Thomas,
you
there's
know-
one more, Thomas Stickles, I believe, right?
Yes, correct. Thomas
Correct.
Stickles.
Yep. Thomas
That's right.
Stickles. Nice to meet you
okay.
guys.
I thought you were just tech support. And I have Anna, I have emailed you these names because there's some spelling issues. Mr. Stickles is a pretty easy one. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us what's happening at the plant. And then I know that there's an invitation for tours. And then we can ask some questions and hopefully you'll all be able to answer the questions in a future meeting or maybe right now.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us. And Philip, it's a pleasure to meet you. You and I had a very pleasant conversation a couple of months back. And so I've kind of looked forward to having an opportunity for you and I to meet. With me tonight is, by the way, I'm the general manager in charge of operation and maintenance for the Richmond wastewater treatment facility, which Veolia contract operates. Also with me is Tommy Stickles, as you mentioned, and he's the assistant general manager. And also with us is Chandrasekhar Venkatraman, who is our president. I know, Stevie, you like that, right? So, that was one of the first things I had to learn how to do was say his name. But anyway, he's president of the Capital Program Management Group.
Somebody needs to be.
We're having a technical
Sorry.
problem.
Lisa, you're on mute.
There's a lot of background
But
noise.
I know,
There
I'm trying
you
to
go.
find who I need to mute.
There we go.
Sounds like
So,
you got it.
then we also have Rodrigo Vigna, who's our senior manager for the CPM group, who's on site. And yes, there's our slide. Thank you, Rodrigo. Next slide, please. So what is it we do? We operate and maintain the treatment plant, which is probably what most of you see us doing. we're actually very present out in the community. But the main thing that you see us doing is running the treatment plan, and you know where that is. The treatment plan has a lot of unit processes, and the headworks is one of the main ones where that's where the flow comes into the plant. It's pumped into the plant, so we don't have it backing up out in the collection system. And we have other devices there, screens, fine and coarse, and we also do grit removal. And grit is a nice way of saying sand and coffee grinds and a bunch of those types of things that will damage the equipment if we continue pumping it through the rest of the plant. After the headworks, we have the primary treatment. That's, for the most part, sedimentation, and not very exciting to look at. It's just like an open tank. Aeration and secondary treatment, that's a biological process, and that's where most of the real serious treatment happens. That's where we're going to be removing the BOD, TSS, and those types of things, which we can have a discussion about that in the future. Or when you come and take your tour, we'll get into some of that. And then, of course, at the end, we have to do disinfection. And we can't just, we use chlorine for disinfection, and we can't just shoot that out into the bay. That's not a good thing. It's not ecologically friendly. So we have to dechlorinate that with another chemical. And then we have a limit on, as to just how much chlorine can be present in our discharge. Out in the street, you're going to see our folks using our Vector trucks and our camera equipment. We have 194 miles of sewer, which is a sanitary sewer, and the collection piping. And we also have 12 lift stations. All of that flow can't come to the treatment plant by gravity. So it has to be lifted to go to continue on its way by gravity. We also have a second collection system, which is the stormwater system. That is 186 miles of piping, which we maintain. We have 9 lift stations in that system. And we like to call these gizzards, but that GSRD is gross solids removal devices. So when we get stormwater coming into the system, you're going to get a lot of debris that comes washing in with the water, 2x4s, baby carriages, plastic bags, all kinds of things. And that's eventually going to plug up someplace and, completely stop the flow or divert it in some place we don't want it going. So these gizzards will remove those debris and let the water continue on uninhibited. And then similar to the gizzards, but much, much smaller, are these trash capture devices. And those we have minimally that we currently maintain for the city, but there's some discussion about what we're going to do with some of the others that are currently not under contract to be maintained. Let's see here. Next slide, please. Well, before I go on to that, I want to mention a couple other things. Is that as far as our staffing goes and our project team, we have 35 people who are on site week in and week out, including the 3 people from the CPM group. And they're the ones who manage all the projects, and they're going to go into that here in just a minute, a little bit. But as far as our O&M group that I'm responsible for, we have 5 departments. We have administration. We have a laboratory, environmental laboratory on site. We have plant operations, plant maintenance, and then collection systems maintenance. So there's several teams, 5 teams that actually comprise the group that runs not only the facility, but the collection systems as well. This flow diagram that we're looking at right now is kind of a schematic of showing you the various unit processes we have. And if nothing else, it indicates the complexity of what's going on here. It's not really a simple matter of water in, water out, and treatment has to happen in between. And it's obviously very complex. it's typically divided into the flow portion, which is the wet portion that's water and has most of the water in it. And then we have a solids portion. We take solids out of the water and those get treated in a separate treatment flow stream. Next slide, please. This is an aerial photo of the treatment plant itself. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, orange arrows, that's the flow coming into the plant, entering the headworks I mentioned. Somebody's gone off mute, I guess. Was that you, CV? I guess so.
Probably. Yeah, probably it was
Okay,
me.
it is. Okay, thanks. Then the flow enters the primary clarifiers that I mentioned, and that's the turquoise looking arrows. And then at the bottom, it turns to the right, goes into secondary aeration, which is where we do our biological treatment, and passes to the right and into the two squares and the one circle above it, which is the secondary clarifiers, which is sedimentation for the biological process. And then to the far right is the kind of long, narrow troughs. Those are contact basins for our chlorination and dechlorination. And then the flow exits at the bottom through the other orange arrows and comes to that blue arrow, which is the common discharge point for the treatment facility. And I like to call it pink color is from the left to the right. That's where West County's flow comes into the facility, commingles and gets blended with our discharge, and then the two are sent to the bay. Next slide, please. CV, I'm going to turn it over to you for the CPM group.
Thank you. Thanks, Monty. So this just shows some of the projects that we are wrapping up in the city of Richmond's water pollution and control plant. So what you see over there is this is a brand new facility that we have wrapped up construction, but we are more in acceptance testing and troubleshooting. Behind that, what you see, that big tank, that is the big odor scrubber. That's the biological odor scrubber, which we use for removing or mitigating the odors which naturally occur in the wastewater. Um, Next slide, please, Rigo. So this is just to give you a flavor of all the different types of projects. So it's been a long time coming. So one by one, we are upgrading each of the treatments. The primary treatment and the grid settling is what I showed pictures of. This was another project that we wrapped up last year, which is where we add the sodium hypochlorite to disinfect the water, and also SBS to kind of sodium bisulfite to strip out any excess chlorine in the water before we discharge to the bay. And what you see on the right is like the control room where all of those instrumentation is located. Next, please. So this is another project that is currently underway. When you come to the plant, you'll see that this is it's under construction. This is a sludge thickener project. So this is it treats the solid side of the organic compounds which come in the wastewater plant. So we just wanted to give you an idea of some of the construction projects that's currently underway or in various phases. Some are in design, several are in construction, and one by one we are going around and upgrading certain portions of the plant. So just wanted to share some sample projects that's underway in the water pollution plant control plant. Next, please. And with that, I know there are probably a lot of questions, and we're happy to answer those.
There's a chat question, I think, Philip.
Okay, there we go. I've got to get my full screen back so I can see that chat. So, yikes. Anna, can you read that chat question? I can't. My screen's messed up. There we go.
Terminus of the pipe discharging into the bay. Where is the pipe
Rodrigo,
discharging into the bay? Well, okay, where?
as far as I know, it passes under the bluff here and goes out. I'm not sure about the distance. I want to say 500 yards. And there's at the point of termination, there's actually a channel marker that indicates the end of the outfall.
Correct.
Don't hold me
Just
to those
to sum up to
distances.
what Monty was mentioning. So there's a, on the flow diagram, downstream of what we call the confluence structure, which is where Richmond's flow and West County flow come together. There's a, I want to say a 54-inch tunnel that goes then across that hill that it's next to the treatment plant. And then there's a portion that is submarine. And then finally, the water goes to the bay.
As an extension of that question, does, who regulates what ends up in the bay? You know, is there a water quality board, or is that, how do we know that
Yes.
what's hitting there is pure?
It's the Water Resources Board, which is part of the State Water Resources Control Board. And
Thank you.
they regulate the permit that we operate under.
Thank you. I'm wondering, Jesse, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. And I also wanted to say to Bruce, who asked the last question, it's my memory that the outfall, which is what they were calling it, maybe they still do, was moved farther from Keller Beach, farther away from Keller Beach a few years ago. Might be 3 years ago or 10 years ago, but I'm losing track of time. So it's farther away than it used to be, but I don't know if it's far enough away for the people fishing down there at the beach. But I want to get to my question. I'm fascinated by sewers and rain sewers. I think I missed my calling, honestly. And I'm always looking down in any hole you people dig, and just I still have a bag in my freezer of roots from root intrusion into my lateral sewer line back in 2004. Anyway, I just love this stuff. And I read a lot about how in the past, seawater, bay water would come up at high tide and get into our storm drain system. And the storm drain system is so old, and back then at least, the sewer system was so old that they would commingle, and that's what would push poop out of the clean outs in the streets sometimes at high tide and rains. And I wondered, I know you guys have done a lot of retrofitting of the sewer system, putting in those casings inside, whatever they're called. And I wonder if they are still commingled to some extent, the two systems.
They are. Ms. Jessie, yes, to answer your question, the seawater intrusion is still an ongoing problem. If it goes only into the storm drain, it's not so much of a problem because those flows typically do not make their way into the wastewater treatment plant. However, they also do enter into the sanitary sewer system. And so, yes, they do eventually make their way into the treatment plant. And these are very rich in sulfur compounds. So obviously they have an impact on, odor causing bacteria and whatnot. So
Thank you. Okay, then the last quick question. A few years ago, you were, and again, it might have been 10, you were building a large square underground thing closest to Point Richmond, and it was supposed to be 100-year tank. Can you talk about that? Is that working out for you? For 100-year rain, it was for 100-year rain or something.
It could be, Jesse, if I may. I think you may be talking about what we call our wet weather system.
yes,
The wet
That's
weather
it.
pump station is by the entrance to the treatment plant. So it's basically the system that we use to handle high flows on the treatment plant. It's storage kind of system. So we have a pump station, 4 pumps, a 36-inch line, that helps us divert some of these high flows into a storage, which is basically a $5 million, sorry, a 5 million gallon tank that will give us some time to survive the storms. And then we send the water back to get treatment in the facility. So I'm
Thank
pretty
you.
sure that that's the project that you're referring to.
Yep,
Okay.
you have awesome memory. That's true. That was constructed a few years back.
Okay, thank you very much. And if you ever have a job for a 74-year-old woman who loves climbing down into holes and getting dirty, give me a call. You can get my number from Philip.
Or if
Absolutely.
you ever,
Thank you.
if you ever need to know institutional knowledge about Point Richmond, Jesse's your woman as well. And here's James.
Absolutely.
Here's James chiming in on the chats about random insane trivia that he happens to have in his brain, which is totally frightening. I would like to make a suggestion, ask a question, and then throw it over to Lisa. One of the things I'd like to do about these technical questions is I'd like to suggest that I reach out to accept the invitation of Monty and maybe set 2 dates for small group tours and send them out to, I know that I can connect you all with Monty and you can make your own tour requests, but maybe we can pick a couple days and see if we can get a small number of community members to get together and tour the plant. I know I'm going to be doing it because I'm interested. And then we can ask technical questions and the plant will be in front of us. And I think that it might be a better illustration. So I'll reach out to Monty and we'll figure out what works best and is safest. And then we'll send out an email to the membership. The other question I have is rather important. I know that our council member, Cesar Zapata, is here. And there's been a lot of commotion over the year and a request that Veolia better communicate with the residents of Richmond in general, but particularly the 3 neighborhoods that surround the plant. Veolia has been very good about contacting, at least I know, Santa Fe neighborhood and myself. And that leaves us to decide as council presidents if it's important to send these out to the community. When Veolia has contacted us and they say they're doing work and they don't expect odor, I have not bothered to send those emails out. And then if there was a problem, I could send those emails out right away. But the question I think that the community has, and I think that the city, Cesar, I hope you're listening in, that the city should have is how can Veolia reach out to the community other than the neighborhood councils? We have 4,000, between the 2 neighborhoods, we probably have about 7,000 residents, but we might only have 400 or 500 people on our mailing list. We can use social media, but I think that part of what the city wants is Veolia to have, to be able to tie in with the emergency services or Nixle or some type of thing that will blanket the community. I think that's a question for CV actually, perhaps, or Rodrigo. Can you respond to that?
Sure. So right now, what we are doing, Philip, as you know, is we communicate through Mr. Richard Diaz, who's the city's emergency services manager. And it's the first time ever that we have also been including, an elected representative, which is Councilperson Zepeda, in all the emails that we send out. Now, having said that, we have primarily been focusing on the 3 residents, as you pointed out, in addition to the city emergency services director, to get any kind of messaging about anything which is kind of out of the ordinary, or even if it elevates the risk even by a little bit of any kind of odors. We've made it a point to use these channels for communication. Having said that, we do not have access to those kind of emergency direct to citizen kind of portals. That is something which we'll have to look into and work with other agencies to administer these services. But having said that, there is always when we are doing any work, there is always this risk of how do I say this, almost over communicating or alarming for, because what we do is generally turn off a fan, turn it back on, things of that nature. So I don't know that we have access to those kind of true emergency, portals, uh, which can directly send messages to all the residents. But I think what we've been doing, especially since last December, has been working fairly well when we communicate through the city to disseminate these notifications. In addition, of course, to reaching out directly to you and to Councilperson Zepeda.
So we can work together with Caesar to make sure that emergency services is looping the city in. Sounds like the short answer to the question.
Yes.
And I know that Lisa is a pretty technical person, so I'm going to throw in one more question. This plant is not manned on weekends and nights and weekends. And what generally I understood from the council meetings was that a manager is supposed to come back if there's an incident. And I'd like to know, I'm looking at different area codes on people's phones, and I'd like to know what's the turnaround time? Is there always someone on call? And how long would it take them to get here when we have an incident?
Yeah, first of all, we're 7 days a week. So
Okay,
there's someone here every day, 365 days a year.
I'm
We
sorry I
just
misspoke.
No problem. It's just kind of a misunderstanding, but that's how it's set up. And we currently have people on call in 3 areas. We have an operations person on call, we have a maintenance person on call, and we have a collections team on call, so that in any event, whether it's in the storm sewer, the sanitary sewer, the treatment plant, we have people ready, willing, and available to come in and deal with issues. And they do quite often, even including odor issues. If you call in an odor complaint, we're going to investigate that odor complaint, even if it's at midnight. So that's what we do, and that's how we keep things in check. But yeah, I know there's been interest expressed about trying to man the facility 24/7. That's a whole nother level of service that is very expensive, for one thing. And it's currently working, I think, pretty well as far as how we're able to cover any incidents that may impact the community. As far as the phone numbers, pretty much everyone that works here is local except for myself and Tommy. We are from out in the valley, but we stay here during the week and even on weekends if need be. So, and we're always available by phone. So there's not an issue of us, being able to give direction or provide guidance if it comes down to that. But all of our managers, subordinate managers, and their supervisors live in the immediate area within typically 30 minutes or so. So we
Thank you.
have a pretty good response record.
Thanks, Monty. Now, Lisa, you have a couple questions?
Yeah, I have 2. So can you guys give us an update on the capital improvement infrastructure stuff that is still left at the plant? What is the approximate timeline for those to be completed?
So roughly, the first couple of pictures that I showed you was for the grid and aeration upgrades project. This is the one we started construction in about 2020, 2021, roughly, and then we are wrapping those up. So pretty much all the construction is already done on that one. What we have is what we call punch list items, just maybe missing some tags somewhere. Some of the panels need to be labeled, things of that nature. So that one is fairly, I would say 99.5% done. The other one should be wrapping up, I want to say by first or second quarter of next year. But that's the only construction project, the big construction project going on in the plant right now.
And is there
So
any
we are
more
racing to
after
finish it.
that? Is there any more after those 2?
There are several planned because these were identified. So what we are constructing today was, for the most part, they all showed up in the 10-year or master plan which was prepared in 2010. So there are still quite a few in that series, but currently those are not approved or so
Hello.
after we
Hi,
finish
Barb.
either one, after we finish the construction on the sludge thickener next year, there aren't any currently scheduled. But we are already, continuing to work with the city to identify other areas of the plant one by one which need upgrade to go about taking care of this.
So are
Can
we
you
looking,
tell
I
me the
guess,
name of the project you said is going to complete in second quarter of 2025? Can you repeat the name of that project, the second project?
Yeah, it's the sludge thickener project. Sure.
and just to give the public just a general idea, like, are we talking to complete all the upgrades? Are we talking 2040? Are we talking, like, is there a long-term plan to set people's expectations about what is still left? Because everybody sees a very, very expensive tax on their property taxes that is paying for the bonds associated with this treatment plant. So I think some people would really like to just have an idea of, like, what is that horizon go out to?
That's a very good question. Unfortunately, I don't have a direct answer on that one. I mean, I think it's really a factor of when we start on these projects. It's also because what we are also doing currently is we are doing a seismic assessment of the plant. So how sound are the existing structures in case of an earthquake and things. So that is coming up with its own list of things to address in the plant. So yeah, my apologies, I don't have an exact timeline of when all of these could be done. It really is a matter of when we get those approved so we can go and finish it. I mean, really, the planning part is the one, the planning funding is the one which takes, generally speaking, the most amount of time. The construction is, 2 to 3 years, even for some of the most complex projects. So those are wrapped up fairly quickly once it's approved and funded.
Okay, and then my second question, and I don't know if you guys have an answer to this. There was an article in the Mercury News yesterday. I don't know if you guys are aware of this article. And it was talking about how it might cost an average of $4,000 per household because the regional water boards that seek to protect the San Francisco Bay are potentially asking for $11 billion worth of upgrades to wastewater treatment facilities across the Bay Area. And this is to upgrade them to prevent toxic algae blooms and to protect the fish. And I'm just wondering, are you aware of all of this? And is our
Yes.
plant, I'm assuming, on that list?
So we are aware of this, but we also have some other ideas to avoid this one. One of the one of the ideas that we have been discussing with the city public works is right now what happens is the water, of course, is we first of all add chlorine to disinfect it, then we strip out the excess chlorine and we dump it into the bay. However, there's already National Gypsum, which is a pretty big gypsum manufacturing company, located, I want to say, about 2 miles from the wastewater treatment plant, who potentially could be a very a suitable buyer for any kind of reuse water. And once this is treated to a higher level, this can be fully reused in their plant. So that is something that we have been talking to the city about. That instead of dumping it into the bay, this can be something which can be monetized as an asset, because it's right now they are on potable water system, and with some really high demands. So by doing that, we don't have to dump into the bay, which means if anything we can actually claim credit, because the city of Richmond's effluent is not even going into the bay. So we
So
have several such ideas.
yeah, and if West County's plant comes into ours, right? So I guess presumably this would be something that would be a collaborative type of approach to address whatever this potential new regulation would be.
It could definitely be a collaborative approach, or it could also be because we mix the effluent from both Richmond and West County. So it could be any number of combinations. It could definitely be. You bring up a good point. It can be a collaborative approach. I'm sure they are just as interested in monetizing and reusing the water. So that definitely could be something that it could be a collaborative approach.
Okay, thank you.
So, yep.
Thank you.
But
So
you're
I
right.
see,
Absent that, there is. But you're exactly right, right, Lisa. Absent that, there are all these forthcoming regulations, which, uh, you know, which definitely want to remove a higher level of nitrates and other constituents in the wastewater to eliminate harmful algae blooms, which of course destroy the marine life.
great. We need to move on. We've got Sally and we've got Graham. And again, I think if you have technical questions, you should join us on one of the tours. Just to speed the meeting along, because we do possibly have a vote this evening, so on another issue. Sally, what was your question?
I was just going to ask, this should, be pretty quick. Whether you're far enough along in your planning to have some kind of timeline about the reductions in the fertilizers that promote the algal blooms. And so what in general does that look like? How many years will it be before they get reduced, and how steep will that curve be?
The last thing that I saw in meeting with the other Bay Area dischargers is the regional board is talking about a 10-year timeline, which is very aggressive. And as CV was saying, we have some potential options that we might be able to get the necessary nutrient reduction in the Richmond facility done without extensive upgrading of the plant. But that we have to test that and verify that it's sustainable. And so that's something that is going to be looked at in the coming 24 months. But all the dischargers in the Bay Area are struggling with this to try to come up with how to meet the requirements and not break the bank. So it's very challenging. There's going to be a lot of excitement coming in trying to negotiate that with the regional board.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. There'll be more.
Thank you, Sally, and thanks, Monty. Graham.
Yes, thanks, Phil. Gentlemen, thank you from the audit. Thank you very much for coming. My question relates to, for your future plans, particularly in light of what Lisa just mentioned about this article in the newspaper, where does the Keller Beach sanitary sewerage system fit into this in terms of it being upgraded or not upgraded or just left the way it is? Do you have any thoughts on that? And I'd be interested in Caesar knows anything about this as well.
Sure. So we have several projects going on the sanitary sewer system side. This is mainly to reduce the number of breaks, the number of voids. Whenever, because we have a regular program where we do a CCTV inspection of the whole line, and when we see that it has a certain number of defects or above, we go and fix those. But ultimately, the sanitary sewer system, what it does is it helps prevent any kind of spills onto the soil. The treatment, though, is generally speaking all concentrated inside the wastewater treatment plant, because ultimately that's where the 280 plus miles of pipeline convey all the sewer water into. So the treatment is all focused in the plant premises. But I don't know if I answered your question. So it's
CB, thanks for that. No, I'm just wondering that there's a big discussion going on as to upgrading or replacing the Keller Beach sanitary sewer systems, and
yes,
possibly hundreds of millions of dollars would be involved in that, including apparently for some individual households have to pay for their own pumping systems to access it. And to me, I would think that if you're working on improving the sewage flow and outflow and keeping the bay clean, this would have been a pretty important project to be coordinating with.
Correct. And we do, the city of Richmond does, invest in replacing the sewer lines, and does roughly about 1% of the sewer line per year, which is generally speaking the industry standard of replacing, because of the lifetime of the sewer involved. So we do have a program where we identify and replace sewer systems, as well as we look at capacity. Wherever there are pinch points in the sewer system, we do work with the city to identify those locations and replace those lines.
I see.
So as part of the existing program.
Yeah, okay, so nothing specific on the Keller Beach system then?
The Keller Beach is something which we, I think the city has instituted a study to, to come up with improvements, to come up with, a project or identify a project. So we are working with the city on that one, but nothing, that report has been not been published at this point in time. So it's still under works.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I want to thank all of our guests from Veolia. Monty, I'll reach out to you and we'll pick a couple convenient dates for tours, and the PRNC will publicize them. Also, we'll send them over to our neighbors at Santa Fe. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. I know that the evening times are valuable, and we hope to see you again soon. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Likewise, and
Thank you.
one quick note: we are also organizing a dedication ceremony for the improvements that have been for the project that we are wrapping up, which is the grid generation. So as soon as the date is finalized, I'll be sure to let you know, and we would love to see all of you in the dedication ceremony.
Thank you so much, CV. Good night, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Good night.
you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good night.
See you soon.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good evening.
Thanks.
Good evening.
All right, let's move on to our community briefs. I know that Charmaine is not with us today. Is anybody here to comment on search? Looks like no. PRBA, we have Karen who will be visiting, who will be giving us her last report, and Bond from Beauty by Nature will be taking over in the future.
Yep.
Thanks for coming, Karen. We're going to miss you.
Thank you. For my last report, I have nothing to report. So there we are.
There you go. Well, thanks for that. Thank you, Karen, for keeping us back on schedule. Point Richmond Business Association. Bonnie Joe, I didn't skip you this time. And you're not here. Okay. For those of you who sit on these meetings, I always skip Bonnie Joe. And now I think she's playing a prank on me. Arts at Point Richmond, Margie called in sick. But I will again thank those artists who came out in the bad weather to support the spring fling. I think it was a great day, but had it been beautiful weather, I think their contribution would have been really even more significant. I see Kate here, probably to tell us about her season. Hi,
Yes.
Kate.
Hi there. In April 13th, we are having a wonderful film, a documentary with animation of a woman who survived the Armenian attacks. There's various words you can use about this period in World War I. She survived it despite her family being lost, and she eventually came to America as a young woman, made it to Hollywood. They loved her story and her writings, so they made a movie of it. And then she decided to go to a private life, and the movie disappeared until this documentarian just the last couple of years put together with animation her 18 fragments of the movie that are remaining, and it's called Aurora's Sunrise. So it's a very beautiful but hard story if you know anything about the loss of the Armenian people. I didn't. It's fascinating to see what had happened with the Turks and why they were interested in the, if you like, decimating the Armenian population. So it's a beautiful story, hard to know about, but we'll be showing that April 13th, Aurora's Sunrise.
And that's at the Methodist Church again?
It is the Methodist Church every second Saturday of each month. This month in April is our next second to last month of showing for this year. And then we'll end in May on the second Saturday in May.
Thank you so much, Kate. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's see where we are. Lego's not here. I see. Anyone have any comment on kids' activities or anything that's happening at Pram? Okie dokie. Oh, we're catching up on time. And it's back to Lisa, our regular HOA report person.
So the one thing that I wanted to mention tonight was that Caesar has been working closely with the B-Card Steering Committee, which is the Brickyard Cove Alliance for Responsible Development, and the city to see if we could salvage a project at Terminal 1 with the current developer that owns the property. And so we have a preliminary meeting with so not a preliminary. Well, I guess I should say it's preliminary. Sorry. It's a meeting with the B-Card group and everybody in Brickyard Cove that's interested as a first pass to review a design that was done by Jonathan Livingston, who resides in the Cove. And if the feedback from the community is positive, then this project would go back with Caesar to the council and to the city attorney to discuss a possible path forward. But again, the community has to be on board. And should that come to fruition, then at some point it would come before the LUDRC and Prnc for a formal review, as goes on with other projects. So that's the update on Terminal 1. And I will leave it at that.
I'm going to jump in on that. I've been talking to Jonathan a lot. He, as many of you know, was for decades on the Planning Commission. Is that the right term? The Planning Commission.
Design Review Board.
Design Review Board. He's a talented architect, and we really need to move forward on Terminal 1, or if this is the general opinion, if that developer pulls out, we have no idea what's going to happen there. So we will keep you informed. This is the changes that I've seen are very exciting, and I think Lisa will agree are very much in keeping with the community's feedback. So again, LUDRC will let you know when that happens. I want to comment on because Graham reminded me that we wanted to actually agendize the progress on the Keller Beach sewer project, even if there's no news. So unless Caesar corrects me, I just want to point out and be respectful of the Keller Beach residents that there is no news, but that we are not forgetting that. Caesar, do you have any news that I'm missing? I believe Caesar's in 2 or 3 simultaneous meetings.
Nope.
There you go. Thank you, Caesar.
No updates on Keller Beach for right now.
Thank you. And thank you for judging the fancy hat competition, because that was really adorable and it was really an important part of your job as council member.
I love
now,
it. To scare you.
Well,
He was on that to scare you.
He was adorable. Adorable. So I'm going to turn this back over to Lisa again. Charmaine would normally do this. She's gone. Lisa's going to discuss the possibility that we will take a vote to support, with Caesar's help, the city investigating and reviewing that horrendous intersection at Brickyard Cove Way and Dornan. Lisa, take it, please.
Sure. So I'm first gonna share my screen. So this was heard at the LUDRC at the end of February. And so in order for us to take a formal vote, we wanted to bring it here, and I'm going to summarize what Charmaine so nicely did in a summary before she took off for her trip. So I'm sharing my screen now just to give people here an idea of what we're talking about here. So this is a design that, again, Jonathan Livingston drew, and it takes into account any future development here at the Terminal 1 site, and would bring into play here a cafe, you know, something, just a short little market store or a little cafe or something to kind of help activate this corner. So currently what happens is there's city and Veolia put in a new sewer lift station here. And it's rather ugly and wasn't well thought through and had zero community input. So now the city has been hearing the community, and they've hired Marcia Valier to help with what we're calling a short-term / interim project, which is really just to kind of create a landscaping situation to kind of hide this horrific plant, this pump and this intersection. But what the community is left with is Dornan Drive comes down here, and then there's a road. This is Brickyard Cove Road that you can't really see in this design. And this intersection and the Bay Trail has had significant issues. And so the community has been discussing this with the city and Public Works with Caesar's help to try and come up with something to make a temporary intersection here. And because we know to get a proper intersection here, one, it's going to take time, and two, it's going to take money. And so Jonathan put together a really nice design here. And what it did was it brought back in the curve that used to always be Brickyard Cove Road, kind of curving right here into Dornan Drive. And the community loves that curve and kind of wants it back. And so what we're trying to do, and what Jonathan did in this design, was to try and create a calm intersection here to address a number of things. Safety at the intersection for everybody who utilizes it, drivers, bikers, and pedestrians. It's also trying to address visibility for any vehicle that's approaching in this direction or in this direction or coming in this direction, so that it's a safe corridor for anybody using the Bay Trail. It's also trying to get rid of what happened is there's a very tight intersection now here when they put in the new pump. And it's so tight that there's not a good line of sight when you're coming here to turn. When people are turning left, they can almost clip the people that are sitting here in their car. And it's very difficult, if not impossible, for people that bring in boats on trailers to the marinas and to the yacht club to even make and navigate this turn. So it's just nearly impossible. And the other concern, of course, is for fire trucks and for any emergency service to get in here quickly and safely. And so and there's also what's happening now is this big space that's kind of right in here. There's a lot of illegal dumping and illegal parking that's going here. So Jonathan took all of these complaints and concerns to try and address this and bring back and restore Brickyard Cove Road to this curve. We would keep the Bay Trail on the north side here, which is where it was going to be when the original Terminal 1 design was approved. It was always going to be north of the road. And then you're going to have this, what he's drawn here is like a combination and a raised platform. You know how you have those raised crossing sidewalks so that bikers and pedestrians could cross here safely, and no vehicles would be able to come in this little area. It's to kind of activate if there is a potential cafe here at some point where bikers could stop, pedestrians could stop, and to just really kind of activate this corner. And then to have a much more calm intersection coming in here. And one of the things that the community has talked about is there is a driveway that is already cut up here. And one of the things we'd like to do is to make this a one-way ingress coming in to the ferry point parking lot, and then a one-way egress coming back out onto Dornan Drive. And again, all of this is designed to make this a much calmer and safer intersection. And Jonathan just temporarily put some stuff in here, which is, do we put a stop sign here, a stop sign here, or a stop sign here? And I'll get into that in a minute. But one of the other things that comes up in this design is the East Bay Regional Park owns this part of the land. And so the community reviewed this. There's a lot of positive things. And this is just, Jonathan's sketch. What does the community think of this? And ultimately, we're going to need a civil engineer to look at this to decide where exactly is the safest spot for this cross to happen on this road. Should it be further over here with a better line of sight? Those are the types of things that a civil engineer would determine. Where's the appropriate places for a stop sign, etc. So this is just a rendering to get the conversation going. It then needs to go to a civil engineer to do a preliminary analysis. And then the other things to get this to happen is we have to have discussions with East Bay Regional Park. One, to see if they would be on board with opening up that already cut driveway, and to make this dirt lot right here, basically, to make it more active and pretty, and to make this a really nice gateway to the Brickyard Cove community and for the Bay Trail. And so there's a lot of things that have been going on there. And so what the community and what Jonathan and everybody wants to have happen, because this is going to take time. It's going to take time to have a civil engineer do this. It's going to take time to figure out how we can fund this. And if the Terminal 1 development potentially goes forward with the current owner of the land, that might help expedite getting this through and possibly some funding for it. We don't know. And so what we would like is to empower and provide a vote that would allow Caesar to go to staff or to the council. It kind of depends on the cost. Some of these things can go directly onto the consent calendar if they're under a certain threshold, and sometimes they have to go as a full agenda item. And what we're asking is basically two things. It's to ask staff to issue a RFP, so a request for proposals for civil engineers to supply a schematic design, road, and Bay Trail alignment, to outline the constraints where grading and drainage and safety issues are or maybe problematic, and then for the Department of Public Works to draft that RFP to keep the scope of the work hopefully under 10K. Right? We're not asking for really fine-tuned civil drawings. We're actually asking for just that interim first level of a civil drawing. And to relocate the road for the people who would service the pump stations to follow a concept plan that only allows kind of what they really truly need, and not this, back end side, two sides entry and all these types of things. And then to show the new Ferry Point East Bay Regional Parks parking lot entryways. So one up here. So this is what we want the civil engineer to do. So that's one thing. And then we also want the city council to vote to direct staff to initiate discussions with East Bay Regional Parks. So is East Bay Regional Parks on board with this plan at all to make this just a much better and more active intersection that's safe, much more aesthetically pleasing for everybody who uses Miller Knox Park, the ferry lot, everything? And so twofold. One, get a civil engineer, an RFP to have a civil engineer do preliminary drawings, and two, direct staff to initiate discussions with East Bay Regional Park. So that's the 2-point vote for this evening. And I'll take questions if anybody has them.
Thank you, Lisa. Does anybody have any questions? Can you drop the screen sharing so we can see the members? Yes. Okay, so Graham has a question.
Yeah, Phil, it's not so much as a question, it's more of an observation. You may recollect that last month I asked about whether we're going to put a roof or a canopy over that generator, which is currently sticking above the low wall. I was down there at Ferry Point yesterday, and I wandered over to somebody who looked like the head honcho over there. And according to him, what he said was, well, yes, they are now considering putting a canopy over the top of the generator there, which sort of implies that initially they weren't going to put one there. Now, if they're doing that, this might be a result of the LUDRC or Caesar picking up on this and beginning to press them on it. But if they are considering it, I think we should sort of make some sort of effort to make sure that they do put a canopy over it, because there's no point in having that rather expensive piece of equipment there open to all the elements.
So I think
Lisa?
we'll know more, Graham. So Marcia Valier, she was going to come again to this meeting, but she needed more time, and she's still working closely with the Department of Public Works. So the goal now is for Marcia to come back. So she had that initial meeting with the LUDRC in February, and now she's going to come back at the April LUDRC meeting and present the design. And if there is a plan for that canopy, she would be fully aware of that, and she would talk about that in the design proposal, Graham.
Okay, but as I say, if they're going to put that machinery there without some canopy over it, maybe the LUDRC should sort of point that out, that it probably does need a canopy.
Well, and I think that the best time for this is when Marcia comes at the April meeting, because there was a bunch of feedback that she took in the February meeting, which is, what is she going to put on top of the wall that's too short and doesn't even cover the generator behind it? And we want people to realize that the plan that she is contracted by the city to develop and for them to implement is really, the community views that as a short-term interim plan, because she's only got $50,000. And that $50,000 is not going to do a lot. She's going to try to put as best color lipstick on that pig that she possibly can.
Well spoken.
Thank you for the question, Graham, and the answer, Lisa. I have a meeting with Marcia on an unrelated topic tomorrow, and I will bring that up. But I do want to remind you that she's not responsible for the design of the pumping station. She's just cosmetically fixing it, as Lisa said. But she, I think mostly because the city really doesn't want to talk to us. She's the ersatz communication for the city right now. So, Graham, if I get an answer from her tomorrow, I'll just give you a call or shoot you an email one-on-one until the meeting. Thanks, Lisa. So
Thanks, Phil.
Let me summarize Lisa's. I just want to summarize because we are going to take a vote. I want to remind you that you must be an active member of the PRNC in order to vote. Okay, so you have to be currently a member. What the gist of Lisa's proposal is that we are going to go to the city and request two things. We're going to request that with Caesar's help, and he will guide us on how to do this. We are going to request, the PRNC would like to request that we have the city get a civil engineer to consider a plan using maybe Jonathan Livingston's drawing as a guideline. And the second part will be to instruct the city staff to begin conversations with East Bay Regional Parks to see if they would be supportive of allowing that encroachment. Is that correct, Lisa?
Yeah, and I mentioned to everybody earlier that there's the first meeting with the community in Brickyard Cove next Thursday at 4 p.m. to review the design that Jonathan Livingston did, and he put this intersection as part of that design.
Correct. And then we will be following through with a special meeting of the LUDRC. The LUDRC and the PRNC, just in case you're unfamiliar, we're actually taking the lead of B-Card, working in conjunction with the community, because they've got a whole team of professionals who are working on this, and people like Lisa who've been working on these projects for years. So we want to work hand in hand to make sure the whole community hears this, but we're very happy to let Jonathan and B-Card take the lead. And then we will come back to you. We're not asking our community to be out of the loop in any way. We're just going to bring you in as this progresses. So I would like to move that the PRNC ask the city to provide independent civil engineering,
Preliminary.
preliminary engineering to review this intersection, and also advise staff to please open up communication with East Bay Regional Parks in order to facilitate the conversations as to whether or not they are willing to go along with this. If you are an active member of the PRNC, you can vote now. All in favor of the PRNC reaching out to.
I'm going to
Yeah, go ahead.
second. I'm going to second your motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lisa seconds. All in favor of the PRNC sending a letter requesting these two items, please, we'll try raising your hands either electronically or physically. So I see one. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Me is 9. James is 10. Diane is 11. Jesse?
I vote yes. I can't see my hand.
Okay. Graham?
2 hands
Fran?
with Peter Talon.
Fran, would you raise your hand?
This is Fran. I'm not sure I'm a member.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
I think that we've got a quorum here anyway, so I'm going to skip that. I'm pretty sure you are, but we can check it out. Karen, are you an active member? Yes. Kate, yes.
Philip, how about if I vote yes, and if you realize I'm not a member, then you just erase the vote?
Right. I think it may not matter at this point because it's pretty overwhelming. Kate, yes. Sarah, are you an active member?
Yes.
Okay. And are you voting yes?
Yes.
Okay. Vivian?
Vivian, are you there?
Yvonne?
I can raise my hand.
Click on reaction.
Jeff Ritterman was on her screen. No, Jeff's there. Jeff, is Vivian around?
No.
Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Jeff.
We're on different screens.
Yeah, is she around?
I don't know. She's
Okay.
upstairs. I don't know where. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think she may be in my house. Hang on. Vivian? No, she didn't come over. We have lemon cake. Yvonne? WW, I don't know. iPhone, okay. Who's WW? I'm assuming not an active member. Anyway, we are overwhelmingly in support of this. So Lisa and I will put this letter together, and then we'll send it to Caesar in the city. And I've lost count here.
I think it was 21 hands. I think I counted 20, and there was 2 with Peter because of Sue. So I think I counted 21 hands.
You have 2 with me.
Oh, and 2. Oh, Mindy's there. Hi. So 22.
That's what I had. Okay. So we've got 22 votes, which is almost everybody here. As far as I can see, all active members are voting yes on this. So Lisa and I will put this letter together, and then we'll put it on the website just so you know what the final text of that very brief letter will be. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And let's move
everybody.
On. Let's move on to the rest of the community briefs. Because we're late. Anything to report, Miss Kate? Did we lose? I think we lost. Hi, Fran. Do you have any report on maskers?
Oh. So I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
The maskers are happily moving along and we're getting ready to announce our next season and we'll let you all know as soon as it's put together.
Okay. Are there still tickets available for the crab feast on the 30th?
I'm not sure. I think there was a deadline. How would I let everybody know there's still room? How could I let everybody know if I find out?
I'll ask Joe to post it, Josephine to post it on social media.
That would be good.
I saw it today or yesterday, but,
Yeah.
and I think presumably if they go to the master's website, that order page will be closed.
Thank
Or
you.
open.
All right.
The deadline for the crab feed was March 22nd, last Friday. They needed a full week to put in the final order for the amount of crab. So it's all done. Ticket sales done.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for filling us in on that, Karen. It takes a village.
I'm here,
Cordell,
Philip.
Cordell, what's going on with you and Franny? Is there something we need to know?
No, I'm sharing her computer because my computer is on the fritz.
I was teasing you.
I know.
And because I just can't say no if somebody says, "Oh, Fran, let me come sit at your computer." I don't know how to say no about that.
So we are on the RNCC. So for this month's meeting, we had a pretty good turnout. We had 9, so 4 in person and 5 on Zoom. So it was all pretty good. So our featured speaker for that meeting is Michelle Milam. She gave us a broad overview on crime prevention, and so I was very interested in it. So they had listed some of the events which I will speed up in case of time. So coffee with a cop, that, and then what else? Holiday toy drives for the kids. So that was very helpful. And so under reports from city staff, so Stephanie Nye says that that neighborhood councils can utilize the community centers at no cost to the city. So it won't cost PRNC a cent. So I just left the North and East Neighborhood Council meeting earlier. So they're doing a hybrid meeting. So that's the good part. So under old business, the new policies with presentations go first and then reports from city staff second. So, and then the second under new business is I had mentioned to the board about having the new port director to come to a future meeting to tell us what he has visions, like for the port as it's slowly coming out of the pandemic. So that's one option. And then the second option is inviting Miss Tanya to come speak to us about her nonprofit as it relates to mental health and other things, as we heard from Officer Tagoda. And let's see, the next RNCC meeting will be Monday, April the 8th at 7 p.m. And this one is very important because for that meeting, I just took a peek at the agenda. So tentatively we're gonna have the folks from the finance department to come and talk to us about the very favorite subject, the budget. So hopefully we get a good number of people attending that meeting. So that's at 7, and that's pretty much it. And I'll be happy to answer any questions from the membership.
Thank you.
That was easy.
Thanks, Cordell.
Problem.
Philip, you're muted.
And as always, remarkably great with Cordell's great memory, remarkably thorough. I was putting that in on the 8th because I want to go to that meeting. And then let's see who's not. Tennis, who I don't see. Gary, are you around?
I don't
Nope.
see you tonight.
Red Oaks Victory. We're back to Graham again.
Yeah, sorry, Phil. I'm talking a lot tonight. Thank you very much. Fairly busy agenda. Fairly busy agenda on the Red Oak Victory. Part of the Bogart Humphrey Bogart movie series for this third Thursday, which is the 18th of April. It's Action in the North Atlantic, which is one of his better-known war movies, which should be worth seeing. Once again, admission is free, but if you've got a spare $10, we'd be most appreciative. The next big event we have coming up
is our spring swing dance on Saturday, April the 20th, where we bring back one of the swing bands of our grandfathers, great-grandfathers, and great-great-grandfathers, some of us, the music they used to dance to in World War II. And it's the George Cole Orchestra. They'll be playing all those tunes of that era. We also will have snacks available, hot dogs and so on, and liquor. It starts at about 6, we'll end at 10, so you can still be in bed nice and early. It'll be, if you buy a ticket in advance, and they are selling fast, it's $30. If you just turn up on board and pay when you come on board, it'll be $35 a head. So please come and join us then. Also, of course, we'll continue to be open on Sundays, 10 until 4. And we hope to start our pancake Sundays on Mother's Day, May the 12th. And I'll have more details to give you at the April meeting. Just one thing, if you come and visit us on the Red Oak Victory, is rather pertinent to what happened yesterday after in Baltimore about the ship being unable to stop and lost steerage because it lost power. Henry Kaiser, in building the Liberty ships, had double redundancies built in for a steering control. You had the main helm wheel on the bridge. You had a second one over the stern, and you had a third one where 2 men would go down into the bows of the ship and manually move the rudder. And to me, it's sort of interesting that I just wonder in this latter day and age, they build ships with that level of redundancy. But do come and have a look, and we'll show you how it all works. So please join us. Thank you.
Graham, may I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I've read I don't understand what I've been reading, but in these current conversations about the Craneway and Rosie the Riveter, is there a possibility that the Red Oak is going to be moved, or am I just misunderstanding this conversation?
That is an open question, Phil. Currently, we pay an extremely nominal sum. I think it's $1 a year or something.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that we were asked to move from in front of Riggers Loft, so they could have the view of the city, and they gave us a lease. Now, there has been ongoing discussions about the city increasing the rent for the Red Oak Victory, which we can't afford. So, that's an open question.
So let me ask you, does the city collect that money, or does the city collect that money through the port? Or is it really functionally one entity, the city and the port?
Phil, I have no idea.
Thanks. I was just curious. Karen, what do you know?
I'm the newly elected president of the board of the Richmond Museum Association, which owns the Red Oak Victory.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations,
and so there is actual active discussions about moving the ship over to the Ford Peninsula opposite the Craneway. And those discussions are ongoing, and we've been meeting with the new port director, Charles Gerard, and that it's a long-term plan. But the Navy apparently has their sights on the former Shipyard 3, and as part of that reuse of that, the Red Oak Victory would have to be moved around the corner, and lots of infrastructure stuff and lots of discussions and permits and all that stuff. So it's a long-term, long-range plan.
Thanks for filling us in. And will there be pickleball on the Red Oak Victory in the future?
We have
I'm sorry.
Don't go there.
Did I say that part out loud?
We have a much
The gunner stations. We just do one gunner station to the other one and slap that ball across.
No, we suspend the net over the open hold, and the person who misses the shot, the James Bond thing, floor opens, down they go.
We are a sassy neighborhood council.
Love that, Graham.
Peter, what's going on in the world of ping pong?
No,
Diane!
Bonnie, you forgot
Diane!
Diane.
I always forget either you or Bonnie
I
Jo.
know, I've been so.
I'm blind to redheads.
I'm
Gee.
gonna be short and sweet, okay? So, the Indian statue, we did some, probably 25 to 30 new plants. And there is new mulch there and in the rose garden, and we did that before supporting the spring fling in the rain. We had really nice neighbors though that were selling books, and they had a tarp and they let us move our table in with them. So that was very nice. Also, our meeting will be next Tuesday, April the 2nd, 11:30 at the Methodist Church, and we'll have a guest speaker. And that would be Barbara Wallace, and she's the Director of Donor Engagement at the Bay Area Rescue Mission. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane. Thanks for your participation in Spring Fling. And I just sent an email to Marley Burton. I've lived here 30 years and those gardens have never looked better. They
Thank you
look
so
great.
much.
Now on to ping pong.
Well, we've been having some pretty good Mondays. I think we had 8 people, and Andrew Butt brought his daughter and an exchange student that's staying with them to come, and those 2 girls were laughing their heads off playing. And so yeah, it's great. I highly recommend it.
And inexpensive drinks. That place is great.
Yeah.
I know that Jim Davis is out of town, so I'm going to assume no reporting there. Any public forum items you'd like to bring up, Lisa?
I have one, and I think we'll come back to the community once we have more information. But the city announced last week that the city of Richmond was awarded a $750,000 grant from the state of California and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research for local government connecting neighbors to neighbors. And we are one of 9 agencies that was selected through a statewide competitive process. And the purpose of the grant is to mitigate community isolation, increase volunteer participation, and improve social bonds in neighborhoods. And the grant implementation is going to begin in May or June of this year, and it will extend through January of 2026. And the grant also supports staffing in the city to implement and help oversee this project and administration. So there's going to be more news coming, and what all it entails, we don't really know, but there were 20 active neighborhood councils at this point in time, and they were part of it. And then staff is also going to try to find funds to help supplement neighborhoods that maybe aren't quite active yet, but want to be part of this process. So something really good, promoting neighbor to neighbor interactions. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that.
Thanks, Lisa. That was the funding that I was alluding to awkwardly earlier. It's so new. We can't, we'll be handling
This
that.
summer we'll hear more.
Raise your hand some
I did.
other way.
And I see Cordell or Fran.
Hey, so I'll take this one. So I have a couple of items for future agendas. So and I'm still working with I'm still trying to get a hold of Superintendent Hurst to have him come to either next month or May because to talk to us about what's going on with the district. So I already got that written down. So I'm like, I made a reminder. I said email Superintendent Hurst and CCU in there, Philip, to have him come for next month or May, whichever is convenient.
Okay, Cordell, I appreciate that. I really want to hear. Please don't give him specific dates because we're booked up. If you connect him with me, then we'll schedule him in. But we have the next 2 months are already booked solid. So,
and then also what I alluded to for in the RNCC report, I did talk to Stephanie, and she says that what I said earlier about having the neighborhood council can utilize the centers, and I said this is great. So I said I will let the PRNC know because we want to go back to the way it was before the pandemic. And I said, so she said that neighborhood councils can use the centers at no cost, so it won't cost y'all a cent. So
Cordell, that's not a change. That's been the standing procedure forever. So at this point, our community does not want to go back to live meetings, and we can't support we don't have the resources or the technology to support hybrid. But we'll continue to look forward that if we can get somebody to hold hybrid meetings with us, we may be able to do that. But thank you for that update. Anna?
I just want to verify what Lisa had said. Is it for this grant, is it going to be, or it's too premature to know yet? Is it amongst 9 agencies that are going to divide that money? Or is it amongst 20 neighborhood councils are going to divide that money? Second.
20.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any remembrances or celebrations to discuss with our community tonight? All right, no news is good news with remembrances. And I celebrate the coming of spring, and I can't say again how grateful I am for those of you who braved the rain to be part of our spring fling. Our next event will be National Night Out, and more news to follow. That's in a couple months' time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for, and all neighbors. I'm trying to be politically correct these days. Thank you so much for letting this meeting go a little late, but I think we covered a lot of ground. I'm grateful to be a part of this community, and I'm grateful that you all showed up on a Wednesday night. Thank you so much. We'll see you next month.
Take care, everybody.